Go. Good morning. It's Friday, April 21st, 2023. It's 9:15 a.m. Exactly the time I had on the agenda. And we're looking again at H158, inactivating the beverage container reaction system, otherwise known as bottle bill. Yesterday, in working with council, we discussed a variety of things and asked him to draft some new language. So we've asked Mr. O'Grady to come back and walk us through that language. And maybe we have a little more committee discussion. I think the other thing that we have from Mr. O'Grady, which is getting passed out, is timeline. So let's start with the amendment, please.
So in front of you, you have draft number 1.1 dated 4/20/2023 with the 1034 timestamp. The first instance of amendment is in say section 1523, which is that section related to acceptance of beverage containers. Subsection B, the current exception for retailers that have a building that's less than 5,000 square feet is struck. And there's in two subdivisions added. One is the existing retailer exception. The second is the exception you requested yesterday, where a manufacturer distributor that sells directly to a consumer from a retail location may refuse to redeem beverage containers if the retail location where the manufacturer distributor would sell or redeem beverage containers is less than 5,000 square feet. So I want to note that I struggled a little bit with would sell or redeem.
You should see the word would. So what's going on there?
So it's about the fact that it's future redemption. I think it's better if it's where the manufacturer distributor sells the beverage container is less than 5,000 square feet, because what you're doing is you're accepting them from redemption. And so you don't need to put the conditional would in there. And it would just be they're accepted from a redemption where their direct to retail space is less than 5,000 square feet.
So if it's distributor sells, then that's the trigger for then getting the exception to redeeming if it's 5,000 square feet less.
Does that
Watson?
it's okay. Does that also does that mean removing the or redeems part
Yeah,
as
but it
well?
would just say where the manufacturer distributor
Sells.
sells
Sells.
beverage containers.
Okay.
It's less.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then the second instance of amendment, this would go into the plan section, the stewardship plan. This is alternative responses to when the redemption rate does not meet goals. And so it gives the agency the ability to revise or require revision of stewardship plans. So if the PRO fails to meet the beverage container redemption rate in section 1534 for Vinous beverage containers or for all other beverage containers, remember they don't have, the plan is not applying to liquor. So you have to be specific about these two categories. The secretary may require the PRO to revise the plan to provide for one or more of the following: additional public education and outreach, additional redemption sites for additional redemption opportunities.
Great. Yeah, I think that's helpful. And the one or more of the following, I'm just that's not an exclusionary list, right?
Well, it is actually.
Yeah, right.
So you could say,
I think I would be interested in thinking aloud with you and the committee about casting it as, the goal is to enhance the function of the system. And be like, and in order to do that, consider consider such measures, including the following. I
Okay,
don't know what else they might dream of.
well then, how about this? May require the PRO to revise the stewardship plan to provide additional education or redemption, comma, including additional public education and outreach efforts, additional redemption sites, or additional redemption opportunities.
Having revised the plan.
Yeah.
Does it get posted on the wall or does it
It
get
has to-
implemented by rule?
It has to go through a public participation process, yes.
And once it comes out the other side, what do you have?
Then you have a plan.
And it gets posted on the wall or it gets
It
in the
has to be.
museum of plans? What happens?
It has to be publicly available.
To use or not use?
The stewardship plan is required by the PRO that's operating. You can't be operating a PRO and the manufacturer cannot be selling their containers unless there is an approved plan.
Does the plan have the force of law?
Yes,
How is it different from a rule?
it's not a rule, it's a plan that's approved underneath statute,
By,
the Secretary of Natural Resources.
proclamation,
By authority granted by the statute.
by statute.
Mhm.
So is a rule.
It's not a rule.
How is it different than a rule? It
It does
doesn't have
not
to
go through the
rule.
Administrative Procedures Act.
It grants,
It's like a permit. Think of it like a permit. You know, permits don't go through rulemaking. You could call this the stewardship permit. It's effectively the same. In order for them to operate, they need to have this. It has a term of 5 years. It's like a permit.
well, thank you for getting it into the niche that helps me understand
Okay.
what's taking place.
Mr. Chair, are you looking for a motion on this language to be included at all?
I'm just trying to do a little catching up and propose some words back to council. So in that line 5, does it work to have it, and feel free to say not so great, revise the stewardship plan to enhance its performance, including, something like that is pretty general and open. Is that
Performance or redemption or
Yeah. This is what line? Line 4? No.
To improve redemption rates?
it is all that whole section about redemption rates. Maybe it's enhance the rate of redemption.
Mm,
sure.
Committee of one.
Yes, it depends what kind of redemption we're talking about.
Well, it's to implement activities that will enhance the rate of redemption.
Including, and then you have that list that you have, right?
and that's line 4.
Yeah. All right, you want me to go make these changes?
Yeah, can you read that last one back just so we hear it one more time?
Sure.
Thank
So starting on line 4, the secretary may require the producer responsibility organization to revise the stewardship plan to implement activities to enhance the rate of redemption, comma, including semicolon, additional public education and outreach, additional redemption sites or additional redemption opportunities.
Mm,
Great. So, any happy with both those changes? And then thank you, Mr. Brady. Are you gonna do that?
I'm gonna do that right now, come back.
Okay,
And we're planning to vote today.
I think, so
Or I know we had
my
Tuesday.
proposal for the committee would be that we get those changes settled. We do a little bit of a walkthrough on the timeline, which has 17, but I was making that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 dates. Just thought it'd be helpful to walk through and then digest the bill over the weekend, and vote when we come back pretty much first thing Tuesday. But that way, if there's anything else comes up, we'll have a chance to do it. So speaking for myself, I feel like there's a lot of parts I think we all get it, but I'd love to have a chance to have sort of a calmer, quieter, slower review before we vote.
You asked me to put this Tuesday, so should I change that
Okay,
to this?
yeah, so let's put that in just before that. So we'll do each one by the first,
Okay.
and then thank you. All right. Summer comment. This time of year, it'd be great if you had the chart, because then on these little moments between things,
Interlude.
Between,
we could do like, a music segment.
Yeah,
do some
next.
acapella stuff.
I mean,
It must be a Dylan song for this, like the hard thing.
don't make him do Dylan. Everyone asks for that.
I loved it.
Okay.
I don't
That's
know
why
how-
everyone asks for
I don't
it.
know how that man can possibly sing his own lyrics, without any kind of memory aid.
Yeah,
Because
that
there
is.
are songs that must be like 1,000 words long,
Hmm.
It's like
or more.
poetry. Yeah.
the whole stories.
Well, there is the theory that the reason they invented regular rhythms and rhyme was to help you remember.
Oh, that makes complete
It was
sense.
a memory trick first, and then an aesthetic.
Sure.
I mean, it's a better way to remember things.
30 days, that's September, April, June, and November.
Well, isn't it like the Odyssey, a story that was committed to memory, and then you would recount it for.
Did you know that the Odyssey has recently been retranslated by a woman, and they found, did I tell you this already? They found some major points of translation differences
Do
between.
you know that the most recent copy of the Odyssey I bought is translated by
See, that's interesting. That's the kind of historical stuff that is really interesting.
John on the shelf. I said, Senator White's in the committee. I better snap too.
Recite.
Try to get a more gender nuanced
Thank
interpretation.
I mean, I did have a feminist reading syllabus for all of you, but I decided to hold that. I'll bring it out next.
It'd be perfect for moments like
Yeah.
that.
The Penelope Papers.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So this is, we're in the stop again, start again mode, but, so we're starting to close the book on some things. So this, I would do say, 126, 146 is on the floor today. We're doing 867 later this morning. Out back to.
You gotta do it.
Oh, yes, yes, that's just.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do for love.
Looking forward to that.
And if it's,
Is Germaine Greer on your list?
no,
Wonderful.
okay.
Sarcastic.
Bell Hooks is my, Bell Hooks is my go-to when people, all about love, highly, highly recommend. If you have not read that book,
But that's the author.
Bell Hooks, yeah. It's a very good book.
She set her name in lower all lowercase time.
Yes, yes. We had a witness, or maybe it was in GovOps, who had all lowercase purposefully, and I couldn't quite figure out if that was.
E coming.
E comes
Did he come?
Yeah, it was probably.
a teacher at community college. Bell Coffin. Wrote a book called Up the Down Staircase. And that would be a pretty damn seller. And then as soon as when Hollywood bought the rights to the book, That was the last time we saw her in class.
He was like,
Gone.
bye. Yeah,
She was
he's.
gone.
So, do we, okay. Burning permits.
Many steps here.
Internet the last few days in the building has been very poor.
Your what?
We're the
Your
home in
internet?
Bethel too,
Yeah, I don't know.
not just in words.
Yeah, I tried to get on the legislative website.
Yeah.
on, Like the Department of Public Service website, and
At least people
starts
take,
to load and then just hang.
Yeah,
people take you seriously when you have trouble. If I have trouble, it's assumed that I'm an incompetent old man and I don't know how to work a computer.
I mean, they would be wrong.
And they would be wrong.
That would be ageism.
Could it both alter it?
They just,
Yeah, well,
Senator Sanders was asked about a proposal that everyone over 75 is required to take a cognition test or something before they are allowed to run for office.
see that?
And he said, we've worked against a lot of different isms, racism, gender bias, etc. This is just another one. This is ageism.
Mm.
And I said, in a funny way, he said something, I know 90-year-olds who are sharp as a tack, and I know some 40-year-olds who are, and then he said something like meh.
So the test has to be written by someone over 75.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Oh my gosh, and he printed them too.
what a guy.
So down to two. Thank you.
This one?
Okay.
And Jude, here's one for you.
Oh, thank you.
So should I just walk through the change?
Yes, please.
Changes?
Thank you.
On page 1, line 18, it previously said where the manufacturer's distributor would sell or redeem beverage containers is less than 5,000 square feet. It's now where the manufacturer distributor sells beverage containers is less than 5,000 square feet. Page 2, beginning on page line 4, the secretary may require the PRO to implement activities to enhance the rate of redemption, including additional public education outreach, additional redemption sites for additional redemption opportunities.
Thank you for your patience as I tried to understand what will require the oath.
I enjoy those little exchanges and
So thank you for these. I'm just, I didn't look back, I have flags on my copy, like I read through, mark up, edit, etc. But I don't know if we've actually, until this, proposed any other changes to the. Is
Not that I'm
mentioned?
aware of.
Not that I'm aware of. Okay. So can you,
Oh, the QR code.
we talked a little bit about yeah, there is, so for the, and I also wanted to go through the timeline with just a little bit while we're here. How long are you here for?
I have to be in Center Economic Development at 10:15.
Oh, well, we'll be ahead of that. So I'm actually forgetting who gave me, it's an excerpt from a California bill, Senate Bill 353. I don't know the current status of it. It's always helpful if it's California law, then it's that there's so much momentum by them doing anything since there's 39 million, I think, California. But the language, so they're talking about the labeling requirement. And it says the department may require that a beverage container intended for sale in the state be printed, embossed, stamped, labeled, or otherwise marked with a scan code, quick response QR code, or a universal product code or similar machine readable indicia. So I don't know if there was any conversation in the House about allowing for QR code. We mentioned it when we had Mr. McCann here, and he said, oh, well, QR codes like in the picture that he brought. That's all about getting you to click through to the winery's website. It's not anything to do with identifying the container. I don't know if the House talked at all about providing for this alternative to use QR codes.
Not that I'm aware of, and I think the QR code can do more than just click you through to the
Right.
website. I think the question, because the UPC and the barcode are there for ease of scanning and / redemption, technology that's out there, I don't recall the House committee talking about it, and I think if you were going to add that, you might want to talk to A&R about what they see the.
Yeah. Well, so the work that the PRO does in coming up with this plan, that they could be proposing adding QR codes. I'm just wondering if we need to address it statutorily in order to allow people to explore it, if it becomes something meaningful. It sounds like it's not yet part of someone's functional system, whereas we know that UPC codes and barcodes are already well established. I would hate to offer an alternative that then mucks up the current, what we have that we know that actually works.
Well, nothing prevents a manufacturer from putting a QR code on their label right now if they want to.
Yeah.
But what is
Sure.
mandated under is to have a uniform scannability, I would say, of a container for purposes of redemption and sorting.
But anyone, now that you're saying that, I'm looking at the language more closely because the department may require, it's not a shall. So a word shall require, it's not a labeling. But, okay, Senator Watson?
In thinking about this, I was just concerned that that it would be clear to the public what the value is and that it could be redeemed in Vermont. And I think that is all still there. So I guess all that is to say, as long as the public clarity is in place, then I'm fine with adding it. But I also sort of hate to send you back for another draft.
Right, well, and one thing is, so just in terms of timeline for us, I thought because there's a lot folded into the bill, as evidenced by the 16 item timeline. I thought it would be helpful for us to take the weekend to do a final read through and vote on Tuesday when we come back. First thing, have it up after 4. So why don't we think a little more about it? So I agree. It's good to be flexible. Good to think about a technology that's up and maybe sort of up and coming. I would just hate to throw a monkey wrench into the part of the system that we already know works well. Sarah White, you thought we're thinking about QR codes
Yes.
before too.
Yeah, so I was just looking at that section again on page, I guess it wouldn't be page 7 now possibly with the redraft, but we had seen language, I think, Heather, who's one of the lobbyists who's in the building, I'm not quite sure who she's advocating for with this recommendation, but I think it's the modelers. But she had suggested having D on page 7, adding D and putting or and QR code. And then my understanding is from what you're saying is we wouldn't need to do that for someone to be able to put a QR code. But my question would be, can they use that QR code to meet the requirements of the labeling as it's written now?
As it's written now, no.
Okay, so that I do think if there are companies that are now converting to using a QR code, I agree with Senator Watson that I like knowing that they can have the refund value on there and that that because it's consistent and you don't need a phone, which is a real difficulty if you don't have a phone. You can't use a QR code. But it would be, I could see saying and you could use a QR code if you did these other things as well. But I don't think that that's not allowed. Like you could have a QR code with all that information and you would still need this.
Sure.
Which is
Manufacturers today can use the QR code. They'll be able to, it's not mandated under 158, they'll be able to continue to
okay.
voluntarily use it. It'll be all about, honestly, label space. Label space.
Okay, yeah, I would like to keep that they have to show the value and.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm just realizing now that I was misreading that list and that, so you, regardless, you would still have to have the word Vermont or VT, which is good. But if they just had a QR code, they, as suggested, then they wouldn't have to put the refund value.
And you asked me to reach out to A&R as to whether or not the refund value must be on there. For example, it's the refund value of the container and the word refund value for the letters RV.
Yeah.
So that was that. Thank you. I knew there was there's a question. That's why there's the pink flag. I should look at it. So what was the answer on that?
I have not.
Oh, you haven't. Okay. So how about on this section, if people could follow up? I don't know if Senator White, if you want to talk to the shoreline, chase it down a little bit. I'm trying to be like, like to provide flexibility for something that might come, but I would hate to have us inadvertently cause problems.
Thank you. Just a question about how this is phrased here. So as it's written, someone could put just so they could put VT and then RV
Right.
and done. And then you wouldn't know
That's your question.
how much it would, it's just referencing whatever the value is of the state.
Right, because there was a question as to whether or not those were ors, or the first one, A, is a requirement, refund value, and then the other, then either after the refund value, you could also have RV or letter, refund value or the letter something. So if we can get, if you can check with A&R on that one, then we'll get that squared away.
But then to continue, so then if the escalator kicks in, then if they just did A, then you might have a bunch.
You potentially have the issue that you have with the ready to drink
Right.
cocktail.
Yeah, right, exactly. So in a way, RV helps get around that. Anyway,
You
it's
don't end up
interesting.
with inventory that's labeled
mislabeled.
one way, the other way.
And you have to honor the old value.
Which would be very tricky if you got mixed. There would be
Yes.
some phase during which you would get mixed 5 and 10s if that's what it turned out to
So I can talk to A&R, and if they want to advocate for leaving it as it is with that alternative, it just say BTRV, then you can make your decision there.
So I'm just reading the whole section to make sure I see how this works. Shall clearly indicate, okay, shall clearly indicate VT, right? Oh, and one of the following. There's the phrase I was missing. Okay. Yeah, so if you can check with that, that'd be great. And we can run down the QR. If you think, if after those conversations you feel like that would be a good idea, then I would think about how it's gonna get woven into that section. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to allow it, which it sounds like we do with this language. I don't necessarily agree with the idea of it being an alternative to listing out. So I don't know if that's different for other folks, if they're comfortable with it just being a QR code, then I might recommend that that we look at that as well. But I'm not feeling like I want the QR code to be an or situation. If that makes sense. I realize we're now in the weeds on this.
People use the QR code and don't realize they're using it.
It's
Right? I
possible,
mean,
yeah.
it's just sort of there.
Well, and
You have to scan
yes, yeah, I think it's also possible to put, this is too much in the weeds, we should not probably do this, but
You could put that in the
you could put
QR.
it in
Yeah, I
the
know you
QR
could.
code, that's.
I know, that would be real cool. And I've seen people do it in the shape of Vermont too. Like there's some of them that are, it's very,
it. Yeah, that actually would be pretty cool.
you could do maybe some creative wine distributor.
They do that for the barcode though, too.
Yes.
I can't remember which beverage manufacturer does that for the barcode.
Yeah, there's a maple drink company that does that for their barcode.
It might be Citizen Cider that does that.
Well, we happily, our state is served long and thin, barcode, like we did. Okay, so great. Let's get on the roll. Please prepare, or you already have, the amendment to the bill. And so we've squared that language away, and then we'll leave the labeling piece open and fully nail it down. If people do have suggestions, if you can share them with Mr. O'Grady and the group on Monday, that way maybe we will be all tidied up by the time we walk in on Tuesday morning.
Are you meeting on Monday?
No, we're not meeting Monday, but if we could get our own homework done ahead of time, then, because the goal is to vote it first thing Tuesday, after the floor. Okay, great. The other thing I just wanted to do is walk through the timeline, unless, yeah.
I don't have the timeline with me. Thank you. You want me to start walking through?
Yeah, just because it's the most concise way, I think, of getting the big picture, like what the bill does and when it does it.
Okay, so the default effective date, as with most bills, is July 1 of this year. And that means unless there's another specified date, that a provision will go into effect on July 1, 2023. And the first example of that is the increase in the handling fee from 4 to 5 cents for containers that are not commingled. So that would go into effect July 1, 2023 with the overall effective date of the act. Then beginning January of 2024, manufacturers of beverage containers sold or distributed in the state shall apply to A&R to form a PRO. So before there is a PRO, there has to be an application to A&R. for the approval of that PRO. And then on October 1, 2024, the PRO submits to A&R a stewardship plan for review and approval. And that approval includes a public participation process. Then before the plan goes into effect for expansion, et cetera, A&R submits a systems analysis of the beverage container system to the General Assembly, and that's Section 7 of the Act. That will be based on modeling because you won't have the actual expansion or implementation of the plan at that point.
And if no PRO steps forward, I know that there's a feature for A&R that should propose a means of.
Yes, if there's no plan submitted or the plan is not approved by A&R, for example, if no plan is submitted, A&R has the authority to require a plan. And then if the plan is, and if they also have the authority to say that they are going to implement their own plan. And if they implement their own plan, then they have the authority to charge the manufacturers and distributors the cost of that plan, plus what I call the big, an additional percentage on top of the plan cost. And so that's not part of the timeline necessarily. It will probably affect the timeline if that scenario plays out. But if that does play out, the agency has time to come and ask you for any extension that they may need. Then on March 1st, 2025, the distributor and manufacturer registers its products with A&R 30 days prior to sale under the stewardship plan. And that's because on March 1, 2025, each beverage container sold or offered for sale in the state needs to have the UPC beverage containers are prohibited from sale or distribution unless beverages covered by the PRO's approved stewardship plan. And then also that is the date where the current requirement that a manufacturer register their beverage with A&R and that a redemption center registers with A&R would be repealed. That is because now the stewardship plan needs to list every beverage that's covered by the plan and then post that online for public review. And as part of every plan, the PRO needs to identify where redemption opportunities are, such as redemption centers. So the redemption center identification registration becomes part of the PRO. And then on July 1, 2025, and every 5 years thereafter, A&R submits to you a report containing the current beverage container. Actually, redemption rate, actually that might be that's annually, not every 5 years. I should say annually thereafter. A&R submits to the General Assembly a report containing the beverage container redemption rate. January 1, 2026, the PRO is authorized to retain 50% of the unredeemed bottle deposits, and that's not 50% anymore.
Well, because of that more complicated construct of $4 million.
Yeah, exactly. And then July 1, 2026, the first beverage container redemption rate goal 75%. Goals increase every 5 years until 2040. The goal is 90% beverage container redemption. March 1, 2026, the PRO conducts a third-party fiscal audit. The audit results are submitted to A&R January 1, 2027. Scope of the beverage container subject to bottle deposit expands to include all drinks in liquid form. And wine is also subject to the beverage container redemption on this date as well. In March 1, 2030, every 5 years thereafter, the PRO conducts an independent third-party audit of the operation of the plan, submits the results to A&R on July 1, 2031. The PRO is no longer authorized to retain any of the underdeemed bottle deposits, and then it goes to that new construct with the waterfall going to the solid waste management assistance account. So I think you pulled this off with a committee prior, the House committees,
Yeah.
and the timeline has changed a little bit, and I apologize for not getting.
No worries, we
revised one.
snagged it in without, but it's helpful to walk through and tune it up. If you could revise this, that would be
Sure.
great, just so that,
Oh, and then we get edited copies.
okay. All right, any questions for Mr. O'Grady? All right, so just encourage committee members who want to think about any more adjustments to try to do it by maybe noon Monday, and then circulate an email to the committee and Mr. O'Grady so that we can all stay in sync. And anyone else you want to share your thoughts with, but at least that way we'll all stay in sync. Okay. Senator White.
Can I just ask one question, which is, throughout all of this, there are opportunities if something were to become clearly needing legislative intervention. There is opportunity kind of in every single one of the sessions to possibly adjust.
Sure. There's also authority given to A&R during the first year of expansion to basically have discretion to determine what containers are allowed for redemption and what are not subject, and to give them some enforcement discretion in that first year, because there's probably going to be some questions that are arising.
Okay, thank you. Just in case someone were to ask that. I thought,
Yeah,
get a
that's good to
confirmation.
share. Many other opportunities, which, for me, when people have talked to me about this, I keep reminding people that the current redemption system's under strain, and that we address that first before we go on to any kind of expansion. So hopefully it'll be a benefit to everyone before they ever see a wider scope of containers in the program. All right, so thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. O'Grady. And we are scheduled, so let's go off and we will